Hello. Hello, Emrys. Hello, Taliu. Hello, everyone. Hello to the people watching live. And hello to the people watching on replay. How are you? It's good to see everyone. As per usual, I think I forgot to do this yesterday. I do want to thank everyone. Hi, Beth. I want to thank everyone who is supporting us. I want to thank everyone who has reached out. I want to thank everyone for. Hi, Amber Chick. How are you? I want to thank everyone. Hello, AKA. Here comes my chat drifting in. I want to thank everybody who is helping out. Moral support. I want to thank the people who have sent cash apps. I want to thank all of you. Hello, AKA. I already said hello. Hello, Lola Lilu. Hello, Casso. It's good to see you. I just wanted to start off with a word, and that is, hi, Anna. How are you? Um, Wanted to start off with a word, and that is that nothing turns my stomach more than people who try to paint themselves as saviors, who only pop out of the woodwork when it's time to take a dig at someone that they don't like. I see you. I see what you're doing. You're doing exactly what Jasmine the sequel and Callie and Charlie and the rest of them did. Zach and all of them did when Chantal made her react to the Holocaust statement, which I clearly stated on stream was not anti Semitic. Um, but everybody ran with it because it was an accusation made against someone they didn't like. Hi, Zarfax. I am not impressed by anyone who comes forward and claims to be an ally to the Jewish community who only appears when they have a gotcha or they what they think is a gotcha against someone that they don't like. You're all a bunch of frauds. You're useless. You are not allies. You're just opportunists trying to get a gotcha. The gotcha failed. Um, and I have even more contempt for those of you who do that than the assholes who are marching in the streets and targeting my community with violence all over the world. So save your pearl clutching and save your fake outrage. And especially when it comes from someone who has accused me of being an anti Semite, who has accused me of being like Nick Fuentes, a neo Nazi, who has made really questionable statements about, how Jews always talk about money and investments and that kind of thing. Madam, you are an anti Semite. You are. I see you for what you are. You can say that that's me changing the subject. It is not. You think I'm your new cow? Then I challenge you, if you really feel that way, put my stream about Al Sharpton on your channel and review it. It was partially demonetized because of the extreme racial violence directed at the Jewish community of New York and the terrible, terrible epithets that were shouted at members of the Jewish community in New York by a certain group of people. So go ahead, prove that I'm a racist and prove that I'm a cow and put that stream up on your channel and review it. I know you won't. Hey, Demo, how are you? I also have to warn you that any attempts to try and turn a community against me, specifically my community, are not going to work because what I've noticed, just in terms of the people who are chatting and the comments that I'm getting and so on, I am starting to attract a more conservative audience than usually shows up for the SJW rants on other channels. And I welcome everyone into this community. I don't discriminate. I don't say you can't be here if you disagree with me on, valid issues. If you're going to come in here and critique my personal life, then you can go fuck yourself. But if you're going to come in here with valid counterpoints to what I say, I'm more than happy to have you here. So if you're going to try to make inroads to try and get me canceled or brigaded or whatever it is that you want for my channel, good luck to you. I tell the truth on my channel. You can go ahead and make your money by streaming for 5 days at a time about cows, and I'm sure that you're going to do very well financially. I would rather make less money and not lie to my audience, and we'll see where the chips fall. And by the way, this is the United States of America. It is not Canada. We do not have human rights tribunals here. We don't have these kangaroo courts where immigrant women are dragged in front of a tribunal to be told that they are going to be forced to wax the testicles of an intact male. That's not how it happens. And I had a really, really nice comment, a very thoughtful, lovely comment from a trans woman that I really, really appreciated. I hope she comes back. She's always welcome here, as I told her in my response to her. Very sane, not part of the wacky TRA mob. Just a trans woman who wants to live her life and does not want to get tarred with the brush that has been used to tar the trans community because of these wacko activists. Now, I wanted to show you guys something. I wanted to show you guys something that I dug up. I was looking through my photo gallery the other day, and I found an oldie but a goodie. I think this was from around 2 years ago. And, well, it's good to have you, Mary. Always good to have you. I'm not a conservative either. It's just that the Overton window has shifted so much that now people are basically categorizing me that way. I am not a conservative at all. Not a bit. But according to these wackos, yes, I am evidently a conservative. If you don't stand with Justin Trudeau and Keir Starmer and Kamala Harris and the DNC and all that, evidently you're like a frothing at the mouth right-winger. No, that's not me. All right. So a couple of years ago, one of Irate Alex's mods decided to tweet this about me. I had been complaining that, and this was approved by Irate Alex. He thought it was hilarious. I had been complaining about how all these insults leveled at me about my age were really tired and not funny. And not they weren't funny because I was insulted, but they weren't funny because they just were not funny. It is the most uncreative way to try to get an own on someone, to level these ad homs at them. And I had been suggesting that people should watch the Comedy Central roast of Joan Rivers, because that's the way to do an old Jewish lady joke, right? Those were some great burns, and they were hilarious. But nobody in the community has any creativity, so this is what Irate Alex's mod decided to tweet about me. It's me in a sweatshirt that says "Coolest Jew in the shower room." And this asshole Necrosol says, "Wait, she wants better jokes." And this Johnny Hellcat person says, "I can't love this enough." Yep. There it is. And there's Irate Alex's name. Yep. And when I made a comment about it, Irate Alex told me to grow up, grow a thicker skin, learn how to develop a sense of humor about myself. I don't remember. And people found that hilarious. Well, I found it to be offensive. I'm sorry. It didn't ruin my life or anything. I just pointed out, what the fuck is this? Nothing like a good old Auschwitz joke among friends. Right, Alex? Right, Alex? Yeah. He's a piece of shit too. So yeah, he's everybody's favorite little victim to trot out. A man who tried to ruin my life, a man who went IRL on me, a man who created a lot of problems for me at my job, which he denies. But I was there. I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, if you go IRL on me, I'm sorry, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Great Witch of the North. Right. Oh, and speaking of witches, you guys, I had to tell you. So I've been on a Barbie no buy for a while now because I didn't want to start turning into one of, those people. I see the Barbie collectors on Instagram and I covet their collections. They're amazing. We just don't have the space. We really don't. And there does come a point where you get into doll collecting, and then you run into the community that makes the clothing for the dolls. They are exquisite outfits. I just don't have the room, so I decided to go on a no buy. Well, wouldn't you know? Today I ordered the Elphaba Deluxe Barbie. Hi, Elsie. Good to see you. Um, so I bought Elphaba because, hi, Daria. Good to see you. I am so obsessed with that goddamn movie. I swear to God. And I was even thinking that I was going to go watch it again. But um, the thing is that there are parts in the movie that kind of drag. I just want to go see the opening number, leave, go do something for 2 hours, and come back for Defying Gravity. I swear I have watched Defying Gravity about 200 times now on YouTube. And the Elphaba doll looks exactly like Cynthia Erivo. I mean, the Ariana Grande doll is a hot mess, but the Elphaba one is incredible. And I'm going to put it on my dresser. That character is my spirit animal. I absolutely love her. She defends the animals. She's a good soul who suffered from bad publicity. And I am a huge stan. And by the way, if you really want to experience true joy in life, go on YouTube and look up Cynthia Erivo at a tribute to Julie Andrews singing Edelweiss, which is a beautiful song anyway. But to hear Cynthia, oh my God, I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Listening to Cynthia Erivo sing that beautiful song is transcendent, is the only way I can put it. I am so willing to put aside all her bullshit because that woman's talent is incredible. And again, Defying Gravity, I'm going to keep on watching it over and over and over again. It is such an uplifting, soul inspiring thing. And Karsten told me something very interesting today about the movie, which is that in the opening scene, there's a drone shot leading into Munchkin Land, and you see the tulips that are planted. Those are real tulips. They planted 9 million tulips in Munchkin Land on that set. Can you imagine? See, that's a movie where you go in and you watch it and you know that the movie, that money was spent on it and it was well spent. Incredible. So, 9 million tulips. I can't even imagine. All right, so back to Cenk and Hasan, uncle and nephew. I think that doing this stream on Thanksgiving is really, really cool. No, I'm serious, Mary. I swear to you, Karsten told me. I didn't know. I had no idea, but amazing. No expense was spared. All right. It's a great idea to do a family Thanksgiving squabble on the internet as content. Now, this is over 3 hours long, and I'm not going to play the whole thing because I can't be here all day. I've got some things to do today. Absolutely not, Zarfax. That is not going to happen. Don't you worry about it. My thing is, I will watch the woman perform. I will appreciate her for the enormous talent that she is, and I will not watch her interviews. I was also very disappointed to hear that none of the songs from the movie are going to be nominated for an Oscar because they came from the stage play, which I think is horseshit. I'm hoping that Ariana Grande and Erivo will still be able to perform at the Oscars, that they'll break their stupid rules for once and actually have good music performed. I don't know, maybe they'll do, I don't know, some Disney song will win as usual, which will be a bummer. But anyway, all right, so these two squabbled for 3+ hours. And I have fast forwarded to a part that I thought was particularly good because it just shows you. I mean, Cenk is slightly more in touch than Hasan, but that's not saying much. So let's continue.
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
So you know what we're going to talk about, the trans issues. So on trans issues, as an example, over 60% of Americans agree. They, of course, they should have the same constitutional rights, same rights to housing, employment, rules against discrimination, etc. Does 1/3 of the country disagree? Yeah. Sad day for them. 2/3 of the country agrees trans people should be protected. I'm 100% on board for that, right? And if you're a right winger and you go, no, man, they're weird, they're different, they're blah, 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 and I'm going to hate them. Well, good luck to you, brother. I'm not going to hate them, and I'm going to protect them, okay? But so that didn't work for them. So they went digging. So then they go, okay, we should ban trans people from the military.
Did you read the New York Times article I told you to read on this the last time we had this conversation?
I'm not sure I did.
About how, okay, so...
they went digging.
Yeah. So what you're describing is what I was explaining to you, that the Christian groups, the right-wing Christian nationalist groups.
Oh, here we go.
In the aftermath of the failed initiative to do a trans bathroom bill in North Carolina, at a time when Donald Trump was pro-trans, openly stating he was pro-trans, openly criticizing the North Carolina legislation, saying leave it as it is, nobody cares. Caitlyn Jenner can piss in whichever bathroom she wants to piss in as long as she's pissing in Trump Tower. When all this stuff was happening...
No, Beth, you're thinking of Vosh. That was Vosh, not Hasan.
There was definitely a different attitude overall. I think part of that was because, just like you also recognize, most Americans, like, they just think trans people are being discriminated against and unjustly. And the other reason was because it just seemed like cruel and unusual for no particular reason. So what these Christian family groups did was go back to the drawing board and, hire the likes of, maybe Frank Luntz didn't personally involve himself in this one, but like people like Frank Luntz that would go and focus group and test different messages.
Yep.
And they arrived at two key points that were resilient. Americans don't necessarily care about trans issues all that much, but they do care about meritocracy. And what is the one place where there's true meritocracy in the eyes of many Americans? Now, there's, still not perfect meritocracy, but sports. Sports is the one area where if you dominate, if you're good, you're going to dominate. If you're dominant, then you're going to get elevated. So,
okay, I'm sorry, but this is so reductive that we are hello, Grace. And I was about to bring that up. This is reductive to the point. Hi, my love. How are you? This is reductive to the point of being extremely offensive. Two men are sitting on panel discussing what is basically a woman's issue. No trans man has ever tried to force his way onto a men's sports team. As far as I know, I may be wrong. Certainly not when it comes to sports involving strength or speed. This is a women's issue. And these two men two frauds who claim to care about women's rights, are absolutely dismissing the valid complaints that women have had about safety, about fairness, about equity, about Title IX going down the toilet, about men and women's prisons. And they're going to completely ignore the issue of drugging and mutilating gay and autistic and sometimes gay autistic children. They're not even going to bring that up. We have a situation now. Listen, no sane person is going to tell Blair White that she cannot go into the women's bathroom. It's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. However, when you have men who are basically cross-dressers in a lot of cases, who are trying to or not even trying to be cross-dressers, who are claiming to be women and want to get into women's rape crisis shelters, or who claim to be women in order to get locked up with women, rapists and dangerous predators want to get locked up with women. Or you have males who are being given jobs that are set aside for women, for example. Those are the examples I can give you. And then, of course, there's the issue with women's sports. It is not a matter of, okay, all these trans people are like Blair White or like Lorraine Cox or like the lovely trans woman who left me a comment. There are a lot of people in the age of self-ID who are using self-ID as a way to force themselves into women's spaces, and a number of these men are dangerous. They're dangerous. And people got tired of listening to the phrase trans women are women. No, trans women are trans women. There's a difference. So this conversation that they're having makes me realize that these two do not spend a lot of time outside of Los Angeles, and they certainly do not spend much time at all outside of their silos unless they go on like Piers Morgan or, you know, a show like that where they're forced to confront some loudmouth screeching person that confronts them on their firmly held beliefs. That's the problem that I have. It is obvious that they are speaking from a point of view that does not take the needs and the rights and the safety of women into account. And I take exception with that.
So they packaged anti-trans sentiment with sports, and specifically children's sports.
Yep.
Right? And that is where we arrive at, what, 60% of the country, or even larger percentages than that, don't think trans women should be participating in sports with cis women, specifically trans girls, you know, competing in athletic endeavors with cis girls.
Yeah.
So,
So that's exactly my point, Haas.
No,
And when they
I'm
laid that trap, first of all, the right wing should acknowledge that was identity politics being played by the right wing.
Hey, Flawley.
The right wing did the polls, they did the studies, they were looking for something that the American people would hate about the left, about trans people, about LGBTQ people. When you go looking and searching and digging for on identity, don't tell me you're not doing identity politics.
no, this
That's
is
exactly what
this
you're
is
doing.
identity politics, and the right.
Okay, so the safety of women is identity politics. Okay, got it. I know that I've told this story about a million goddamn times. Thank you, Grace. I will continue to do so fearlessly. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. I think that these men have not taken into account the large numbers of women who, by the way, are not right-wing Christians, women who are feminists on the left. Julie Bindel is not a right-wing Christian. Neither is J.K. Rowling. Neither is Helen Joyce. Neither are the scores of other women who have risked their careers, risked their safety, and in some cases risked their lives and their freedom to speak up on behalf of women. And this is going back many years. Hi, Crafty. It has nothing to do with Frank Luntz. It has nothing to do with the Christian right. These are women who started speaking up early and often, many years before Matt Walsh decided to stick his mitts into it. So, I mean, Zarfax, you can speak about whatever you like. Just speak about whatever you like from a vantage point of taking into account all the facts, you know? Feminism, not with the exceptions of the women that I just spoke about, and it's not a coincidence that the women that I mentioned are all Gen X and young boomers, or for the most part are. It is a generational conflict. Fourth wave feminism turned into a men's rights movement a while ago, which kind of goes against the grain of what the kind of feminism that I practice, and started to advocate on behalf of males. Males. Again, I am not referring to the Blair Whites and the Buck Angels and people like that. Blair White and Buck Angel know that they're not biological male and female. They're aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why I like them so much. I respect transgender people who can say, look, I'm transgender, the end. I just want to live my life. But I don't claim to understand what it is like to live as a woman from birth or a female from birth. I don't know what it's like to get to menstruate. I don't know what it's like to be infertile. I don't know what it's like to have to deal with all these issues that women deal with. And the same goes for men as well. That's not what these two guys are talking about, though. And I really resent this talking point that this was all some nonsense that was cooked up by Frank Luntz and right-wing pollsters and the Christian right. That is completely and utterly false.
Does it all the time. Now, listen, here's the thing.
Hey,
you
Kanish.
understand this to be a distraction. Like, you recognize that it's a distraction, which is why I don't think either of us are saying that this should be the pivotal,
Hey,
this should play
Milo.
a pivotal role in the top of the line messaging of the Democratic Party, which is that, like, no, trans women have to compete with cis women. I don't think anyone is making that argument at all.
No.
But I think we should, it would serve us both well to openly recognize, and I think you do as well, that this hyper focusing on, trans athletes at the high school level all the way to the collegiate level is a distraction that most Americans might have an opinion on, but don't necessarily care about. It's not a major driver of turnout. It's not something that people go out and vote for.
I don't agree.
No.
Hasan, have you seen those council meetings? Have you seen the school board meetings? Have you seen the girls who have been injured because they're playing against boys in volleyball or some other contact sport? Have you seen the parents of the girls who are mad that they got cut from a team or that they lost because they were competing against a boy? Come on now, stop it.
Okay, well, we can have that argument in a second. I will explain it to you why I don't think it's a real issue. Part of the reason why is that it's just simply not a real issue because do you know the number of trans athletes nationally?
So I know that
under
it's
the collegiate level.
no, it's microscopic.
It's
That's
40.
why
The number is 40.
Yeah, and so like 20 states, 20 red states passed a law against transgender girls participating in high school sports, and they couldn't name one transgender girl in their state that participated in high school sports.
Yes.
So that's exactly my point. We start with agreement.
Even Spencer Cox vetoed the bill in Utah originally, and he actually wrote like a pretty compelling argument as to why he was vetoing it. And governors like Andy Bashar have actually won by higher margins after openly defending trans people in the past in a state like Kentucky, for example.
Yeah, our governor here in Indiana vetoed a similar bill at first, and eventually I think it passed. Oh, you mean Andy Bashir, the incredibly popular governor of Kentucky that Kamala Harris should have picked as her running mate? Yeah, I'm familiar with his work. Thank you.
So look, we start with a point of agreement, which is that the right wing uses a wedge issue to drive a wedge between us.
Mm-hmm.
They go looking for it, and they do it based on identity politics.
Okay.
So we totally agree on that. We totally agree that it's a microscopic issue that affects almost no one in the country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we don't have paid
Also, I don't
family,
even think
we don't have
that's
health
except
care
for
everyone.
girls,
This is
but
bullshit.
okay.
I don't even think
This is
that's
meant
true.
to distract us.
I don't
we
even think
disagree.
it does
on
impact
how to
people.
react to it.
It does actually impact.
Yeah, a microscopic number of people. The UN conducted a study that proved that hundreds of medals were awarded to males competing in women's sports. Hundreds. But sure, it's just one or two people. Why all the fuss?
Impact a lot of cis women. There's more cis women than there are trans women, and there are a lot of young girls that this could technically impact, because now you have bills like the one in Ohio, the penis inspection bills, like the one that they have in Ohio, where like one of the parents from the opposing team could be like, "That's a trans girl, actually," and then they have to literally go and traumatize this like young girl who in many instances is not statistically it is highly unlikely that person is trans to begin with.
So
And
look, again,
it ends
but
up
Haas,
harming cis women even more than it ends up harming trans women.
Does
So
it?
that's look. I said this exact same point on trigonometry, and their audience hated it. But this is the reality. The reason I make a distinction between high school and professional sports is because in high school, what you're saying is, like Ohio, if I really want to institute this, even though it affects almost no trans or cis girls, if in the world in Ohio as it is,
Like
but if I go to implement it, now I got to check everybody's genitals, and there's got to be a genital checker, right? And let me guess, tons of Republican older men are going to volunteer to check the genitals of our high school kids, and I hate it. I don't want it. It's like a groomer pervert factory, and they're going to probably put Jim Jordan in charge of it. No, okay.
Okay, so do a cheek swab. How about that? Do a cheek swab. You don't want some guy or some woman pulling the pants down of a girl or a boy or whatever. You know, the cheek swabs that the Olympics bafflingly decided to ban because they were too invasive. Get the fuck out of here.
But when you get to the professional level, you get to the Olympic level, you guys make a giant
Hi,
mistake.
Donna.
You fall right into their
Hi,
trap.
Sanelli.
And you go, oh, yeah, sure, they should be able to compete. When the overwhelming majority of the American people do not agree with you, you should let the Olympics and the professional sports decide it on their own. It is not a constitutional right. They have no so-called right to participate in the WNBA. I don't have a right to participate in the NBA. So, number one, I don't agree when you go to those extremes. And number two, does it affect elections? Well, we had an overwhelming answer to that in the Trump-Harris contest, because Donald Trump ran the anti-trans ad, which was not about hating trans people, although of course it was perceived as such by a lot of people. And so, what it was saying, hey, you guys are giving free surgery to undocumented immigrants who are detainees who are trans. It's
I
too
did not
much.
know this.
It's too, and I agree. It is too much. 98% of Americans agree. It is too much, right? So instead of saying, oh, no, that you guys are right, that's too much. And of course, sports leagues, that's fine. And of course, no, we're not going to pay for any surgery for a dude who just crossed the border a second ago, right? Instead, you guys go, no, let's fight. Oh, for God's sake. And you dig in. And now we're on a losing ground for no reason at all.
Can you tell me who on the Democratic Party's campaign was actually saying, like, no, we have to issue bottom surgery for undocumented migrants outside?
Okay, I'm sorry, but this is exactly what Hasan does. And this is why debating Hasan is a complete waste of time. This is that issue, the bottom surgery for illegal immigrants. I didn't know that this existed. I have no idea where that came from. I don't even know if it's true. I guess it must be. I have no clue, right? That's not what concerns me. What concerns me is that the entire Democratic Party establishment came out in favor of policies where self-ID was accepted on its face, which created a whole boatload of problems. And so did the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Psychiatric Association, all of the official bodies, let's say, of the medical establishment, based on money, of course. Money is a big motivator, based on incredibly faulty and inaccurate polling data, where they scared parents half to death by threatening that their child was going to commit suicide if they would not be permitted to transition and end up as permanent patients for the rest of their lives to undergo extremely risky surgeries that would require, in the case of girls, flaying the skin off the arm or the thigh in order to create a penis, or what passes for one, that doesn't work, which is why Buck Angel has never had the surgery done. Or in the case of trans women, to create, not a vagina, which is why Blair White hasn't had the surgery done. I do not know if these parents are being given giving the kind of informed consent they should be giving. Because for years, what we heard was the lie that puberty blockers could be easily reversed. All you have to do is go off them and nothing bad will happen. Well, after how many years? What is the impact of giving cross-sex hormones to young people? And how young is too young? Rachel Levine at HHS wanted to severely drop the age of consent for these dangerous drugs, life-altering drugs, to be given to children. And the country said no, absolutely not. Let's continue. Why aren't they talking about this? Why aren't they talking about this? Why are they focusing on sports? Why are they so fixated on that? Okay, so that's not a big deal. This other stuff is a big deal.
Of Kamala Harris saying that in the ACLU questionnaire in 2019, when faced with the question, what will you do for trans people? She just gave that answer, which was a bad answer to give regardless. But was there like a hyper focus from the Democratic Party's campaign that I'm missing?
So Trump starts running the ad, and it instantly jumps to the most effective ad according to Trump's internal numbers and according to Kamala Harris's internal numbers. So at that point,
that's also not true. David Plouffe literally said,
and this trans ad
my
was not
God.
driving vote. I mean, the most effective ad, Quentin, I think they ran was not that. It was the Bidenomics ad.
On the Pod Save America autopsy that they engaged in, that the ad actually wasn't all that impactful at all.
yeah, bullshit.
Oh, you
I
don't
saw
believe
him
it?
say that. I know it's not true, because Future Forward, the biggest PAC that Kamala Harris said that the Charlemagne the God version of that moved the national polls by not the national polls, but for people who viewed it, it moved the numbers by 2.7 points.
All right, let me break this down. That ad was, let me put it this way, okay? Every election cycle, these political consultants cobble together these ads, and the vast majority of them, I would say 99% of them, are garbage. They're boilerplate, they're crap, they are unimaginative, they're uncreative, they don't resonate. That Trump ad was exceptional because the tagline, Harris stands for they, them, Trump stands for you, or whatever the tagline was, I'm paraphrasing, was the most brilliant tagline I have seen in an ad since Saatchi and Saatchi crafted an ad for the conservatives that was everywhere. It was all over the UK. It was a long, long line of people. And the end point is the unemployment office. And the tagline was, labor isn't working. It was incredible, which is, I think, one of the reasons why Charles Saatchi can afford to collect all that hideous modern art that he's purchased. That is what gets to people. That is what penetrates. It is an incredible thing to be able to marry a simple tagline with an amazing visual, right? It was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And again, I'm going to repeat that these two guys need to get out of LA more often, because when you travel across the country, including to parts that you might not want to venture in because you think that they are frightening, that there are going to be people there who disagree with you, or maybe you think they're going to attack you because you're paranoid or whatever. And you talk to people and they tell you what they think, and you shut your mouth, open your ears, and you learn things. At least I hope you do. And I've told the story a number of times about one time when I was driving back to DC from Indiana, and I stopped off at this Waffle House off some exit in Ohio. I don't know where I was, but it was in essentially the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And I went in wearing my woman, noun, adult, human, female t-shirt. The woman behind the counter took my picture, sent it to her sister. The short order cook came over to talk. Customers came over. We all had a conversation, and no, everybody did not clap. I'm sorry. That's not where their story is leading. Hi, Marchioness. But what was interesting to me was that a bunch of people working in a Waffle House in the middle of nowhere in Ohio or in the Midwest or anywhere for that matter, it just happened to be in Ohio. It could have been in some other location. That shirt sparked a conversation that was quite simple and sophisticated at the same time. Because that issue resonates with people. And the fact that Trump managed to put out an ad that was that effective, because Trump and his people understand the voters better than the Democrats do on this issue. He does. It's not a question of bigotry. Again, it's a question of good polling, good focus group research, and an understanding, a basic understanding of where the American people stand at a given moment. It was exceptional.
Nationally.
Okay.
That is gigantic. And they said it was the most effective ad Trump had. That's why he then doubled down and quadrupled down and wound up spending 20% of his entire ad budget on that ad.
I think
What does that
both
tell you?
sides thought it was the single most
that's
effective ad.
I think that's literally the reason why Kamala Harris was able to actually catch up to Donald Trump
Listen
on
to this
not only the
nonsense.
economy because of their hyper focus on the trans shit. But
You
here's
thought
where
that helped Kamala Harris?
no, I don't. I think that this kind of hyper focus on a marginalized group is not moving people to go out and vote in any meaningful capacity for some of the reasons that you also mentioned, but also because most people don't know who the trans people are. They've never met a trans person. They don't give a shit. They just care about the economy. And when you're hyper focusing on just like trans people and like dominating trans people or some shit, even if it's something that they agree with, they're like, after a certain point, there is outrage fatigue. And I think on the trans issue, we like consultants and people who are hyper focused on the media care far more about the effectiveness of ads like that than the actual Americans that went out and voted.
Really? Well, that's not borne out by the numbers, Hasan. It's not borne out by the numbers. When you release an ad that can move the needle that much, something's going on. But okay, Hasan, keep on lying to your audience of tweens, and keep on driving Twitch into the ground, and we'll see how this all works out for you.
And you saw
Except
this
we
reality.
lost, they won.
No, I know, but okay. So
I mean, like it's so in the real world, they won, we lost. In the
that's why
in
you
the
have to look
world
at-
of
that's why you have
consultants
to-
where they look at polling.
That's why you have
they
to
won,
look.
we lost.
That's why you
I mean,
have to look at the broader campaign and what Americans were concerned with and why.
Yeah, and the broader campaign sucked ass, Hasan. It sucked. Now, keep in mind, all right, I am at a weird vantage point because people around here worship Trump like he walks on water. All right, so maybe they're not representative of the wider public any more than the people in DC are representative of, anything. I can say that when I lived in DC, I did not know a single person who had voted for Donald Trump, not one, until Trump won in 2016, and he sent 2 representatives from his transition team to my agency. And they were kids. They were very, very young. And they were sent over to kind of oversee the transition from, one admin to another. And I have to say that I was dreading meeting them. The union executive board met with them. And their resumes were not impressive. Their educational backgrounds were not impressive. And I honestly thought that they talked a good game. I was very impressed with what they had to say. And then they sort of snuggled into their positions. They earned a lot of money, and they did absolutely not fuck all. So they learned the art of sort of playing a federal government job to the T. Okay. But initially, I was very impressed. Since I had very low expectations, I was very impressed by these two. And then they proved to be a crushing disappointment, as did all the outsiders who came in to try to reform the agency. But, you know, it's very, very hard to reform government
They
agencies.
voted in the ways that they did. And I think
Haas,
here's
your
where you and I
position-
agree on.
So your position is, even though both sides overwhelmingly say that ad was the most effective ad and it moved people and it cost Kamala Harris tons and tons of votes,
Yep.
you disagree.
Yes. And the
Okay.
reason why I disagree with it is because, well, I don't completely disagree with it. And I'll explain to you why. And I think you and I are going to be in agreement with this. I think that the only way that that ad is even remotely sticky when, you know, or even remotely effective, when I still question the legitimacy of how effective the ad was, because there's plenty of examples of people actually defending trans people and then winning by resounding numbers all across the country.
It depends on what issue, though, Haas.
It's because the Democrats they stand for nothing. There is nothing that unites the base of support for the Democratic Party. They are this.
That's not true. They do stand for something, and that something was rejected by the voters, Hasan. You know, it's amazing to me. I mean, we've got sort of the TMU version of LawTube going on right now. And we've also got the TMU version of Meet the Press and Crossfire. I am really saddened by the pathetic and simplistic and reductive nature of political discourse on this platform. I know that this is a huge news flash for everybody. But if you want really good political commentary, don't go to Twitch, for God's sake. I mean, even people who put in the work, I mean, there's some sort of rays of light, but they're not in this country. I would point to Trigonometry. I would point to Andrew Gold. I would point to The Spectator has a really good YouTube channel where they have fantastic guests. And actually, one of my biggest disappointments is that Dave Rubin doesn't do the sorts of interviews that he did many, many years ago that were really terrific. Now he's just a shill. But YouTube is like the Sahara Desert when it comes to trying to get decent, well-informed political commentary. It's really a shame.
This weird big tent third way neoliberal party that is constantly pointing to institutional norms and defending this notion of civility. If that is your overarching campaign strategy, then yes, if you stand for nothing, you will, people can turn around and tell others what you actually stand for. They can reframe what you actually stand for and say this is the type of stuff that they care about actually. And therein lies the problem. And I think you and I will agree on this. If it was like a Bernie Sanders style candidacy, if Kamala Harris was like, I want Medicare for all, that Americans are suffering. I want to fix the housing crisis by implementing a federal jobs program backed mass housing boom that will actually fix the housing markets in all these big cities and all across the country by building a shit ton of houses. No public-private partnership, none of that. No opportunity economy language whatsoever. We're gonna just build, baby, build. If those are some of the key markers that you're focusing on, this does two things. Number one, Republicans are reactionary, so now they have something that they have to fight against. And if they don't have anything to fight against, they're going to find new wedge issues to make everybody pay attention to, no matter how.
Okay, I admit that as a sentimental, old, rapidly aging, sort of former red diaper baby, okay, and I'm exaggerating, okay, but you get the point. I do have a tremendous respect for the Works Progress Administration. VOA had amazing murals in the hallway that were painted by those WPA artists like Ben Shahn and so on. I think that a public works program would be fantastic. I do, but it's never going to happen. It was promised. It's never come to fruition. The roads and the bridges in this country are an absolute disgrace. Housing, no, not really loving that idea. But I'm open to exploring it. Why not? But I mean, the country needs help. There's no question about it. It's just a question of how to implement it. But people are concerned about the economy very, very deeply. And these two guys, these two millionaires sitting here talking to each other, claiming to stand for the working man, it's a bit too rich for my blood. I'm sorry.
Silly or stupid, right? So now they have to fight against that policy and present why that policy is bad. Now they have to sit there and lie about why giving healthcare to every American is actually going to be devastating because they're backed by their corporate donors. So
No, Hassan. No, Hassan. That's not how it works. I know that this is a favorite hobby horse of these progressives, but you need to ask doctors what they think of this program. There were doctors like my former oncologist, one of them, closed his private practice and joined a practice that was affiliated with Johns Hopkins, which has basically taken over a lot of what used to be private practices in the DC area because doctors cannot afford to continue to practice. And the Medicare, the money that they get from Medicare for treating patients is very, very tiny. The allowances are very small. And older patients need a lot of care, as we all know. And older patients also want to be able to sit down with their doctor and talk. And doctors don't have that kind of time. They have to do rapid turnover of patients in order to be able to keep their practices open, their doors open, pay the insurance, pay the rent, pay for the equipment, pay for the staff. And so a lot of doctors in the DC area specifically are now turning away Medicare patients. So if you want to implement a huge government program, like the one that you two keep dreaming about, you're going to have to get doctors on board, and that is not going to be an easy task. And it's going to be massively expensive as well. God, these guys will not let go of Bernie Sanders. It is incredible how they're still holding him up as like the ultimate. Bernie is not the guy. Bernie is not the guy. The guy that you're looking for has not emerged yet. And when he emerges, you guys are going to say that he's too conservative. I mean, I would back a national candidacy by Richie Torres or by John Fetterman. But you guys would dismiss them out of hand for reasons that I only think are too obvious.
So that's a major issue with the way that the Democratic Party operates in general, and I think you agree with me on this, right? If you give him something to fight for, if you give him something to fight against, they're not going to find new ways find new things that they can just like draw a wedge on. So that's number one. When you cave and capitulate, the second point I was going to make is when you cave and capitulate the right-wing framing on these issues, the only thing you end up doing is basically admitting that the Republicans are right. And the Democrats have done this on immigration. The Democrats have done this on policing. The Democrats have allowed the Republicans to dominate the space over and over and over again. And they've done it with trans issues as well, or they're doing it now with trans issues as well.
Okay, you know where Republicans did not dominate the space? San Francisco and Oakland and Los Angeles. And look at what happened in those cities. Look at Portland. Did you see, and leaving Portland out of what I just said, look at what happened in those cities because they implemented progressive policies that were too progressive. They basically legalized crime, threw their voters to the wolves, and there were recalls, and a lot of these people were either recalled or voted out of office in some of the most liberal cities in the United States. Did you guys not see those election results? Did you guys not notice that happened? These ideas are deeply, deeply unpopular. Deeply unpopular. And I'm going to be returning, and Donna, you're going to be happy to hear, I'm going to be returning to Roland Fryer soon because my admiration for that man is so immense that I think it's time to take another look at him.
Just call it out for what it is. It's a simple distraction. This is not going to put food on your table. This is the way that the Republican Party gets away with being in the pocket of billionaires openly by saying this is the only thing that the Democrats care about. Trans people are your neighbors. They're not your landlord. They're not your boss. And they're not the reason why healthcare is so costly. They're a tiny group of people in this country that just want to live their same lives. They literally have the same exact class interests as you. They literally also have to pay rent at the end of the day. They also still are harmed by the same shitty job opportunities that people have. They also are worried about not being able to own a home or retire at a reasonable age. The idea that these people are the reasons as to why you're experiencing economic anxieties is silly. Don't ever have this conversation. That's what I say. And that's how I deal with it as someone who is obviously somewhat radical in my pro-trans message overall.
So let me start with the agreement and move to the disagreement. So the agreement is super important here because you're right. And this ad is, in a sense, the perfect symbol of, in my experience, you only agree with half of this, but the merger of what is wrong with the Democratic Party's corporate wing and the radical left.
Here we go.
You switch them together. We'll get to labels in a minute. Okay, so you switch them together.
What radical left wing? Hasan, you are the leader of the tankies. What are you talking about? You sit there on your channel day after day brainwashing tweens who don't know their ass from their elbow and get their news from you and TikTok. What do you mean, what radical left wing or left wing? What do you... Don't be so modest, Hasan. I mean, come on. You're the star of the show. You're the one who's driving Twitch into the ditch. But let's continue.
Together, and you have this ad, and this ad helped Trump win and Kamala Harris lose. Why are you switching them together? For the exact reason that you explained, Huss. Because if they were like Bernie Sanders and they were economic populists, Bernie can say, why are we talking about that issue? We should be doing higher minimum wage and we should be doing universal health care, et cetera. And then now we're having a real conversation about things that affect people's lives. And Kamala Harris can't do that because she's too busy pleasing the donor class, right?
Tony West. Shouts out to my man, Tony West.
And who cost us the election more, that ad or Tony West? Not close.
Who the fuck is Tony West? Okay, Harris's brother-in-law, a corporate executive, emerges as a close advisor. Tony West, the top lawyer for Uber, is weighing in on polling and running mates. His presence has made some liberals anxious. I'd never heard of Tony West before this live stream or this video. So you mean to tell me that it was Tony West who changed the course of the discussion? No. God, these guys really need to get out more often. They really, really, really need to get out more often. They need to go to West Virginia. They need to go to Indiana. They need to go to rural Pennsylvania. They need to go out west. They need to talk to people who are not members on their channels, don't send them donos, and are not, 13 years old. They really, really need to talk to actual voters.
Tony West. Okay, so Tony West, who's the Uber executive, that's her, brother-in-law, told her, oh, you know what? You're too tough on corporations. Instead, you should give them a big bear hug. Go out there and put out that 90 corporate CEOs signed a letter saying you're awesome, and that you'll work for corporations and do everything that they want. Bring in Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney pulled a 13%.
Oh,
Liz
here we
Cheney's
go.
one of the most unpopular people, progressive data for progress.
You know, what's really funny is I was watching some of that awful Pod Save America interview with Hasan, and they brought up the Cheneys too. Do you two realize that the only people who are talking about the Cheneys are people in your bubble? You know that nobody else gives a shit. If I went next door and I asked my neighbor, did you know that the Cheneys campaigned for Harris? He would probably have no idea. But yeah, keep on beating that Cheney drum. No one gives a fuck. People are concerned about the price of eggs. Have you not heard? Okay.
Did a poll that showed the more she campaigned with Liz Cheney, the more she lost support. She lost enthusiasm. It was a super dumb idea, and that cost us more than this ad did. This whole idea of, oh my God,
What?
I love big business, and I'll do everything big.
Cenk did not just say that campaigning with Liz Cheney cost more support than the Trump ad. Cenk, come the fuck on. I was rooting for you, dude. I was rooting for you, but you lost me there.
Business tells me, look at Mark Cuban. He's on every cable channel telling you that I will do whatever the fuck business interests want. It's the worst idea in the world, especially when you're running against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's going, hey, here's a billionaire, Elon Musk. I'm just going to give the government to him. And here's another billionaire, Miriam Adelson, and I'm going to give foreign policy to her. And here's Tim Mellon, weirdo guy who inherited all of his money and douchebag who wants tax cuts because he's just rich and earned nothing in his life. And I'm going to give him tax cuts for the rich, right?
Cenk, you do realize that most people are in favor of tax cuts, right? I suspect even you are in favor of more tax cuts. You're rich. You and Hasan are rich. I love this faux populist talking point coming from two millionaires. These guys are so out of touch. They are so out of touch.
But they never make that case because they're corporate douchebags. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, all of Democratic leadership. And so these guys are never going to win another general election. The American people hate them. They should hate them. Okay. And so.
Yeah, the American people hated Hillary Clinton so much that she got 3 million more votes in the popular vote than Trump. But do go on.
What the right wing doesn't understand is both the populist left and what they call the woke left, I call radical left or whatever. We'll figure out the label in a minute. But in this case, you're on the right side. You say the corporate interests, the donors, right? So, and the populist right agrees with that. So that's actually an interesting point that we should come back to, a point of agreement we should come back to. But the part where we disagree.
Okay, then why didn't the populist right vote for Kamala Harris? If she's so much in the pocket of the corporations and the millionaires and the billionaires and so on, why didn't more people cross the aisle and vote for her? This is what I would like to ask Cenk and Hasan.
Haas, is you say, well, if they're digging in on a wedge issue, ignore it. But Kamala Harris literally did that. They had a giant debate about whether to address it or not.
No.
They even pulled ads
You're
where
misunderstanding
they addressed it.
You're misunderstanding
and they decided, oh, fuck it, let's not address
You're
it. And
wrong.
It was a mistake.
They literally also, like, they did this with immigration especially. Like, they were like, we're not going to ignore it. We're just going to get ahead of it. And what they did with immigration, they're going to do with trans issues next election cycle. And it's the same principle over and over again. It makes you look like a hypocrite, and it makes you look like the Republicans were right all along. And the only thing it does is prime your base into conceding and agreeing with the Republican framing on an issue. If
so
there
what
was
do you
any
do instead? What I say is I delineate. So when you say, hey, Andy Bashir runs against it, but which issue? So if you're talking about constitutional rights, you fight for trans rights 100%. You're talking about military, you fight 100%. I'd fight on bathrooms. I'd fight on high school. But I draw the line on sports. I draw professional sports. I draw the line on giving free surgeries.
That's the thing.
Then you can defend your position and get back to
where
the great majority of American people agree with you.
You want to know why there's no reason to draw any of these lines? Because Kamala Harris did actually bring this up, which I thought was like, especially because like she didn't have a clear or consistent position on this at all. It was like, it was left out there in the dark, but like Trump did the same thing as well for undocumented migrants.
Say that. I know.
It's just like it's a thing that nobody gives a shit about until people are primed into caring about it. That's my point. It's been happening for a very long time for prisoners that want to get this component of healthcare, and nobody technically gives a shit about it. It's already like a incredibly tiny, minuscule, marginal percentage. So it doesn't matter. Like it ultimately doesn't matter. I'm saying if the Democrats had
but
something
it did matter.
But it did matter though. But it did matter. Again, the results speak to it mattering.
Democrats had, but it didn't. And I'll get to that in a second. If Democrats had something that they were fighting for, nobody would give a shit about this. That's the point.
Yeah, but that
you brought up Bernie Sanders. And you said, healthcare, universal healthcare. Bernie Sanders has also said trans rights are human rights. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like...
But that's the difference between 2016 and 2020.
It's not like Bernie Sanders. It's not like Bernie Sanders himself is saying like, yeah, trans people, we got to cut them out of this bargain.
trans people. You guys are just making that up.
No.
But Haas, when
No,
you frame it
first
that
of all,
way, you get
the
all these crazy
Republicans
people
are
online.
saying that. Republicans are saying that.
No, I know, but we're not saying that.
No,
You get
I
all
know.
these crazy people
You're
online
too-
who are like, oh my God, if you don't agree to free surgeries for every trans person on planet Earth, you're a fucking Nazi. Well, you know those people exist, and fuck those people.
Okay.
That is the radical left, and they are stupid, and they do cost us elections.
No, you're hyper focusing, and I've had this conversation privately with you many times over. You are hyper focusing on people that are in your replies on Twitter, and because
so you agree
that's
with
all
me,
you
that radical left
because
is bullshit,
all you interact
stupid dumbasses. Do you agree?
There are a million people that are both in your replies that have also gotten mad at me as well, time and time again, on specific issues, maybe ones that even pertain to trans rights. It literally doesn't matter. People get very passionate, understanding. I'm very understanding.
Shocking agreement. I agree. There's
I
13 douchebags online. That's what I said from day one.
I know, but why the f would you ever hyper focus on
but
people
Haas,
like
because
that?
Look, no.
No, the two of you spend way too much time on Twitter. That is my opinion. Obviously, if you're going to get that bent out of shape over what people say about you on Twitter or in your comments section or in chat or whatever. I mean, nobody contradicts Hasan in chat. He boots them immediately. But that's part of your problem. You need to get off social media. You need to talk to people. Real ones. Not trolls on Twitter. Or address every single critic. I mean, come on now.
No. So you might be doing the right thing. Hold on.
You're doing the Bill Maher thing. You're demanding that there needs
bullshit.
You're
Hold
doing
on,
the
let me
Sister
explain.
Soldier moment.
No,
That's it.
bullshit.
No, you're trying to.
So the minute we said the most reasonable things on earth, which you now agree with, apparently, then what happened? It wasn't just the 13 douchebags online. And by the way, everybody said, no, those 13 douchebags represent all the left. You're not on the left anymore because the 13 douchebags control the left. And then what happened next? Then Majority Report jumped in, and Lance from the Serfs, and all the other little dirtbags jumped in, and they were like, yeah, Cenk and Hasan.
Ooh, shots fired at Sam Cedar. I'm loving that. Shots fired. Well, of course, Majority Report and Packman and Brian Taylor Cohen and all of those people, got in line. Because they all share an audience. It's group dynamics. They acted like sheep, and I think that to a certain extent they actually believe what they're saying. But of course they did. Of course they came out to criticize Cenk and Anna and anybody who stepped out of line. I am so disappointed in Sam Cedar. I used to listen to him years ago, back when he had a sense of humor, which he appears to have lost. But Majority Report is unwatchable. As is David Packman, as are all of them. They are awful. All that they do is repeat talking points over and over again. They are incapable of having any kind of nuanced conversation. They're propagandists, just like Hasan. And just like Cenk is to a certain extent, even though I appreciate the growth that he's shown. Same thing with Anna. But come on.
They're turning right. The 13 douchebags are right. We need to protect every trans person should get free surgery.
We got
even in China. Even though we have nothing to do with China. We hate them. They're Nazis.
Okay.
I mean, I'm 100% right. Every dirtbag show did it.
You gotta calm
Every
down.
dirtbag show did it. Tell me I'm wrong.
This is reframing an issue that is now we've moved away from the electoral consequences of a trans ad to your own personal anger and frustration that you have with left-wing media online. We are
so do you agree left-wing media online?
We are
those guys that I listed are full of shit.
I have
and in a tiny stupid minority.
I have disagreements with everyone in this space, but there's a reason why.
Name those disagreements. Name those disagreements, Hasan. I want to hear one example of you disagreeing with the Majority Report. One example. I want to hear it. I'm genuinely curious. What is it? What issue is it that you disagree with them on? Because you all march in lockstep. And you're the leader of the tankies. But okay.
Seemingly, I don't catch the same amount of strays that you do because I don't hyper
I can
focus.
tell you why.
I don't hyper focus. What do you think it is?
They think you're hot, young. I don't mean attractive. God bless on that.
Well,
okay?
that too.
I'm also obviously hot. I mean, as in they think, oh, the young people watch Hasan. He's cool. And you give the thing of like, oh, no, trans people are right on everything, right?
No, because Hasan is a huge streamer. I think he's the biggest streamer on Twitch. I don't know how his numbers compared to, I don't know, XQC or whoever else, or Asmongold or any of those guys, but he is a huge streamer. He is protected by Twitch, obviously. And they all share an audience. Of course, they're not going to attack Hasan. Of course, they're not. I mean, goddamn, Ethan Klein had to be dragged kicking and screaming because Hasan personally insulted him. Not because Hasan is a moron, even though now that's the talking point. Ethan, who is one of the most spineless capos on any platform, called Hasan out for featuring a terrorist on his channel, for running terrorist propaganda, for being an open propagandist. But yeah, again, they all share an audience. They march in lockstep. They're not going to go after Hasan. Are you kidding?
You don't come out and make the distinctions that Anna and I made. Although
once Hasan gets yeeted, trust me, the vultures are going to come out.
Think, oh no, he's good. He's extreme as we are. I think he's woke left. Yay, extremeness.
I think the reason, first of all, you're
okay. By the way, majority report and all of you guys, you better attack him. He apparently agrees with me. Okay, you better attack him. You're not going to attack him, are you?
You're
Get the f out of here.
You're hyper personalizing this into like criticisms that you've
comes
received.
And punches you in the face 12 times, and you go, what? Why are you hyper personalizing it?
Because
just because I called you a Nazi, now it's personal to you.
Because myself, you, majority report,
but I never changed my policy. I never changed my policy.
All of this is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. And whenever there's like drama, for example, I've been getting attacked mercilessly by my former podcast co-host that has been actively trying to deplatform me for the past 2 months because he thinks that, or he's claiming that I am creating a space that is anti-Semitic.
But that's true, though. That's exactly what you've done. That is 100% true. And the only exception that you're willing to make is for capos. Absolutely. You think that if Hasan saw my channel that he wouldn't come after me and call me a propagandist and a Nazi and whatever else? Of course he would. Hasan, you have featured a Houthi terrorist on your program, and you squealed over him like a teenage girl flipping the pages of Tiger Beat. And then you denied that he was a terrorist, even though the guy was openly admitting that he was involved in hijacking of ships in international waterways. You did that. You humanized him. You have played terrorist propaganda on your channel. You have spread lies on your channel. You are a rape denier. But yeah, sure, you're not creating an anti-Semitic space on that channel. Everyone can see it. Everyone.
The way I've dealt with that, for the most part, is by just actively ignoring it leading up to the election because I was like, this is some silly nonsense. And in the aftermath, I covered some of the broader points, and I fucking moved on. If you extend the conflict that way, instead of trying to find a reasonable middle ground, and even show humility in a certain, I don't agree. Even show humility instead of saying I'm right, there's never going to be any sort of real
Why am I
solidarity.
Show humility to you, a bunch of idiots who are wrong.
Because I
like what does humility mean? Like, oh, maybe you're right about your dumb opinion that's going to cost us this election. Okay. Maybe you're right about your dumb opinion that gets the majority of the country to hate us when our economic positions are overwhelmingly popular. Maybe you making us intensely unpopular when we should be focusing on universal health care, higher wages, paid family leave. But you idiots hate policy. All you want is identity politic bullshit, and you think that drives ratings, and you want me to show humility to those morons? None. Zero.
And this is another example of why you guys need to get offline. You really do. You are so far up your own asses on social media that you don't get it. Listen, I understand Cenk's frustration. I know what it's like when you come out with an opinion that people don't like, and they get angry and they start calling you names and they level all kinds of insults at you, and there are calls to take your channel down or brigade you or smear you or whatever. It's horrible. It's very frustrating. I get it. But didn't you kind of expect that, though? Didn't you expect it? You've been on the platform for over a decade. How many years has the Young Turks been around? And you didn't know that if you came out with an opinion that defied conventional wisdom, that this was going to happen? Of course. Of course, because your audience is delusional, Cenk. That's why. And it's the audience that all of you cultivated. And now you're building a new audience, and I think that's great. I love building new audiences. I always welcome that opportunity. Let's continue.
But let's have a meta conversation really quickly about the ways in which branding works online. I am of this mindset that every single person is far too busy and far too self-involved to pay attention to the more nuanced conversations that others are having on.
What nuanced? I have never heard you conduct a nuanced conversation on your channel, Hasan. Not ever. Not ever. You're a tanky propagandist. And by the way, speaking of Chalamet, I was watching some out of the theater reviews of that new Bob Dylan biopic that he stars in, and I'm hearing amazing things. And I did not know that they did their own singing and played instruments in the movie, and it looks really good. That was another movie that I wasn't going to see. I thought, how dare you? How dare you do a biopic on Bob Dylan, especially in that time period where he went from acoustic to electric? No, don't touch Bob Dylan. But I hear that Chalamet does a spectacular job.
Any particular issue. This is why, even when there is like a faucet of smears that I am attacked with clips that are completely out of context,
they're not out of context.
I address it and I move on. And I come at this conversation with an understanding that most people are not fully aware of what my analysis is on any particular matter. This has happened in the past with, me purchasing a house where people were made a big deal about it. Like even back then I said, look, people are angry. People are frustrated with their position in society. People are frustrated with a lack of opportunity. And in that process, when they see a rich asshole like myself, buy a house, they're going to get mad at me. And there's a hell.
No, it's also that you are a multimillionaire who claims to be a spokesman for the working man. And it rubs people the wrong way. That's why. So, come on. You know how this game works. You're out there preaching your little tanky beliefs. Yeah, people are going to call you out for being a rich asshole. Absolutely.
Healthy amount of anger towards wealthy people there that I agree with as well. I think that they're misdirecting their anger at the wrong person. But ultimately, I move on. If I spend every waking moment covering, the anger that I'm receiving, and if I spend every waking moment covering like things that are out of context, then I'm not going to be able to, I'm just going to be that. I'm going to be the person who's responding to drama all the fucking time.
I'm sorry, but when you are constantly railing against rich people and you buy a $3 million house, you're goddamn right that somebody's going to have something to say about it. And did he buy not a Porsche? He bought a very, very expensive sports car and had the nerve to pose with it and say, oh, I bought this for us. No, you didn't. You bought it for yourself. Just shut up and enjoy the car.
And I feel like there are far larger, more consequential issues at play.
Now, let me take the other side on the meta
hyperfixation on not only a very small sliver of society that is, in your honest opinion, has been openly targeted as like the major reason as to why people are angry, is offering legitimacy to the right-wing position.
He didn't say that.
I think there's a more effective way of communicating that, and it's something that it's something that I do on a regular basis, which is, this is a simple distraction. You don't care about this. And the people that do hyperfixate on this are fucking weird and gross.
Are they?
Leave people alone. Let people live. These people are...
You hear that? So women are weird and gross. Little girls are weird and gross. The feminists who have been battling for women's rights are weird and gross. The people who oppose gutting Title IX are weird and gross. But do go on.
Neighbors, and they and yourself are more aligned on class issues in more meaningful ways than you think. Tim Walz does a fantastic job with this.
No, he
and
didn't.
Andy Bashar has done a fantastic job with this. They're both very...
Tim Walz did a fantastic job with what, Hasan? He was a terrible choice. It should have been Andy Bashir. Should have been. Tim Walz was a terrible choice as a running mate. One of the worst I've seen since Sarah Palin. But continue telling yourself that story.
very popular governors that you like as well.
But that's literally my position. All right, so listen.
But the reason
let
why
me
people don't
disagree with
think
you
that
on
that's
them.
your position is because people see the clips. People see clips out of
I
context.
know, but what do? They see clips on douchebag shows who are purposely misrepresenting our position and pretending that we're against all trans rights. So,
Okay.
Please explain to me, Hasan, how bringing an actual terrorist on your show who boasts about kidnapping people and seizing ships and gushing over him and comparing him to, like, you know, cartoon characters or heartthrobs or whatever. Please tell me in what context you presented that interview, and tell me the context that justifies your behavior. Tell me what context justifies you playing propaganda videos, terrorist propaganda videos on your channel. I'm looking forward to hearing an explanation. I love hearing all about context. Did you provide context for the number of Yemenis that the Houthis have killed, or how they indoctrinate child soldiers? Did you discuss that with him? I don't seem to recall that happening, Hasan. And then trying to slough it all off, lying and saying, oh no, he's just some Yemeni teenager. And who can blame him, really, given the circumstances in Yemen? The Houthis are a vicious mob who have exploited and murdered the Yemeni people. But, you know, okay, Hasan, keep telling yourself that.
So your position to that is surrender, okay? And no, I never surrender. So look, and here, let me explain why, though. Why do I think that's surrender?
Oh, hi, Capone.
Because we've tried this, Haas. So let's, on that meta conversation, so we tried it with Trump. Yeah, so Young Turks viewers will remember in the beginning when he first started running in 2015, I thought he was so illegitimate that he was doing it as a con, which by the way turned out to be wrong.
Who?
Trump.
Oh.
And we blurred out his face. First we didn't show him, then we blurred out his face, and then eventually we gave up and started showing who he was. Ignoring the beast never works. So then I remember when.
But these people are not the beast.
Hold on, let me finish the point. When Dave Rubin came out and started lying, 100% lies, lie after lie after lie, we ignored it because we're like, what? That's fucking mental, right? But then the lies started to take root because he goes on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like, oh, really? Tell me more. Oh, my God, Dave Rubin's so right. And then he went on like 100 shows. And so then Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire comes up, more gigantic, and Crowder comes up. And we're like, oh, these are pimples on our ass. Who cares about Shapiro? He's so small. Crowder, who cares? He's tiny. He's microscopic. Who cares, right? And we didn't address them. And you know what happened? They festered and festered and festered. And next thing you know, Dave Rubin, everybody started to think, oh, I wonder if he's right about the Young Turks and they have some evil, nefarious purpose or something. Then we started fighting back and we crushed that mother. Now he's a laughing stock. So whenever anybody thinks of Dave Rubin, they're like, oh, yeah, he's that dumb guy, right?
Yeah, but
Well, he's not a laughing stock. He's just a shill. Dave Rubin decided to find a new grift. He had the Young Turks grift. He found another grift. I mean, he had this period of time where he was terrific. You know, he was doing he was doing great interviews. He did interviews with people that changed my mind on a lot of topics. They were very effective and very powerful. And then he just jumped on the right-wing grift. He's very unprincipled. This is a guy uh, who will suck up to a lot of very unsavory characters and lie on behalf of those people. And it's gross. I have to say. I don't know. I have no respect for him. I really don't.
That's not because of you. That's also because of
Oh, I
Majority
know.
Report,
I know.
ironically
Oh,
enough.
yeah,
And people like myself.
I know. When
No,
we
it's
fight
not
back, everybody hurts, gets their feelings
the point
hurt.
is, it's not.
And
It's not
and then
just
it's
you.
never us. We never get any
The
credit.
reason
We
why
only
I'm
get
bringing
discredit.
up the reason why I'm bringing up Majority Report and myself in this process is because ultimately we are all aligned on virtually every single issue. So in many respects, you feel chastised individually. You feel like you've been outcast by the left or whatever, like the media representation of the left
They're not
is.
the left. I'm the left.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
100%. And
Okay.
you
okay,
agree
okay,
with
okay,
that.
okay. Please.
I love a spicy no true Scotsman debate. Oh, this is exactly the kind of conversation I don't get pulled into because it's a complete waste of time. You are arguing with a tanky, Cenk. There is literally no point. I know he's your nephew. I get it, but just drop it. It's not going to go anywhere.
Please just
No,
listen.
because we have to.
But you're not the singular
the
force.
idiots are making everyone think they are the left. They're like, we're the left, we're the real left. Okay, we are super extreme. We want free surgeries for every criminal. Yes, we're the left. And oh, Nazi. And
Well, that's true.
Haas, what happens? People think they are the left. So if you say you're right, Cenk, those are the extreme idiot left.
I don't
and
think
you
that
are
they're
the left,
extreme,
then I'm okay.
No, I don't think those are the extreme idiot left. I think that there is going to be a diversity of thought in any issue that people have, and it's a matter of who you make your enemies in the finite amount of time that we have on the space.
Oh, God.
The finite amount of time that we have, living on planet Earth. It's about the economy of time and utilizing it appropriately. I don't spend
So
any
you're
time.
saying
I do not spend any
just
time.
let him attack you and sit there and don't correct anything. Let all the lies fester. Okay,
yes.
wait, you didn't let me finish. So Dave Rubin, now he's a laughingstock. Then Jimmy Dore comes in
Because Dave Rubin is a right wing.
Oh, Jimmy Dore is a psychopath. He is completely insane. He got wrapped up in every conspiracy theory. I'm surprised that he hasn't joined the flat earthers or, the moon landing was fake crowd. But he's terrible. And he's another one like Dave Rubin who tried to make it as a stand-up comic, and he is crushingly unfunny. But Jimmy Dore was on the Young Turks too.
Majority Report is not.
So
Hi,
you're
Julie.
saying,
You are in agreement with the Majority
No,
Report.
hold on. Let me finish the thought. Let
virtually
me finish the
everything.
thought. So on Jimmy Dore, he comes in and goes, oh, they're paid by Nancy Pelosi. They're paid by the CIA. Lunatic, right?
He is a lunatic.
And so we let it fester. Finally, we're like, get this out of here. And we tell the people truth and we crush him. Now he's a joke on the internet, right? So we go on, and anytime we don't fight, it festers. Anytime we do fight, we crush them and we move the on, and nobody thinks Jimmy Dore's the left anymore. Nobody thinks Dave Rubin's the left anymore. And so now these guys come and attack us, going, "Yeah, we're the real left. We're the real left."
There's a difference.
And you're saying, "No, don't crush them. Just let them fester
Because
and
you're
have
not-
people
you're not-
pretend that they're the real left."
You're
no,
not.
we don't do that.
You're
so
not.
if you're going to say stupid shit and you're going to try to punch us in the face, we're going to punch you back, not on our behalf, on behalf of Democratic voters who you are lying about. The Democratic voters do not agree with you. They agree with us. So sad day for you, and I'm not going to let you lie and pretend that the Democratic voters are on your side.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I need to ask because it bears repeating. Do you want to win elections or not? Ultimately, it comes down to that. Do you want to win? Or do you just want to be in the wilderness, wandering around like a lost prophet? What do you want to do? What is the goal here? If you want to win elections, these conversations that are taking place, they're all very exciting to watch on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, but they don't matter ultimately. The bigger picture is, to what extent are you going to allow people whose ideas are deeply unpopular to remain in control of the party, or at least have a disproportionate amount of influence over the way the party is run. It doesn't mean that you exclude people, but what it means is you prioritize. Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that people are in favor of universal health care if you take into account all what it would take to launch such a massive program? Where is the evidence? Did these people not witness the way I did? Did they not witness the tremendous obstacles that Republicans threw up to keep Obamacare from passing, and the lawsuits and the votes, and every attempt that was made to pass Obamacare, which was one of the mildest reforms I have ever seen? And by the way, Obamacare is still very expensive for what it is, and for the kind of coverage that you get. So I don't understand what the point is of insisting that the American public supports a program when I do not. I mean, it depends obviously on the wording of the question in a poll, or how a focus group is conducted and all that. I don't believe you, Cenk. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I remember all the campaigns that were run, and the the different insurance companies, because I had a friend who was a consultant who was hired to run ads against Obamacare. And I remember the talking points, and they were very effective. You're not going to be able to see your doctor. You won't have choice, and blah, 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 which is not necessarily true. You open up a marketplace and you can choose. You can choose an HMO. You can choose, a PPO. There are a lot of different options, but unfortunately, there were no price controls. So the insurance, at least in the DC area, is still very, very expensive for pretty shitty coverage, honestly. But where is the evidence that people want this big government program? Does anybody know? Because I haven't seen it. If it exists, fine. I will take it under advisement. I will read about it and I'll see if it's popular. But something tells me that if it was really that popular, that it would have been part of Kamala Harris's platform. And it would have resonated. I think that there were other issues that were more important in this cycle that everybody was very tone deaf on, or everybody in the Democratic Party was tone deaf on.
You're a fucking liar.
And I will return to the examples. I saw David Pakman do this on YouTube, where he was trying to say, or where he claimed, well, the economy's really not that bad. And let me bring out this study from Wharton. Let me refer you to some statement made by the chairman of the Fed. Let me show. Nobody cares. People go into the supermarket and eggs are expensive. That's all people care about. You are not going to persuade people to not believe their lying eyes when they go into the grocery store and prices have gone through the roof, and then you want to trot out a study from some pointy-headed intellectual at some Ivy League school or at a business school and say, see, look at the numbers, you're wrong. No, they're not wrong, and people are tired of being gaslighted.
Okay. And they're not on your side. Do you agree that the Democratic voters are on my side?
I don't care what the Democratic voters are on, of whichever side they're on right now. We've lost the plot. We've completely lost the plot, because now the conversation is about like the serfs or Majority Report, and I think that's a completely and utterly unproductive conversation to have.
Your strategy is when grifters on the left attack you, whether it's
I don't think
Rubin,
they're grifters.
I think Cedar's a grifter.
He is. Cedar is a grifter.
I disagree.
Okay. Oh, by the way, so now all of a sudden you're defending Cedar. When he calls me a grifter, you don't defend.
First of all, I've never heard him call you a grifter.
He's called me every name in the book.
Okay.
I am living for Cenk going after Sam Cedar. I'm sorry. I'm petty. I really enjoy this. Let's go.
He's a low rent grifter.
Stop.
Okay, no, I'll tell you. I'll out him right now. When we were in Vegas together, when we were in the same network, he starts attacking Jimmy Dore. And I say, hey, cut this shit out. I agree with you, not Jimmy, but you're attacking him in a way that is over the top and totally unnecessary and counterproductive. And you know what Sam said to me? Sam said, oh, well, he has a bigger audience than me. So if I do that, I'm going to siphon off his audience. You know why I siphon off? Oh, because I'm right and he is wrong. And the audience deserves to hear my truth. So he's doing the same thing to us. He's
agree with him.
And I told him not to do it.
But you agree with him that Jimmy Dore is
no, this was pre-Jimmy going full right-wing, full lunatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but
on that particular issue they were debating about, I agreed with Sam and not Jimmy. I don't mind him saying, hey, I don't agree with Jimmy. What I minded is him saying, oh, Jimmy is terrible and bad intent and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
but brother, he hadn't even done that yet.
He disagrees with Jimmy Dore on this particular, whichever issue.
What was it on?
What was it on?
He says, I don't even remember. It's irrelevant. What he says is he literally told me, I try to take other people's audience by getting into their basically next to their algorithm, right? So if you've got a guy like that who has bad intent, you're saying if you deem him right wing, you should attack him. But if you deem him left wing, you should let him lie about you. You should let him call you every name in the book.
No.
You should let him pretend he represents the left when he doesn't represent the left. He doesn't represent Democrats. You should let him trick people into thinking that the Democrats are super unpopular, that the left wing is super unpopular. No, I'm not going to let him trick people into thinking that.
Okay, listen. Sam Cedar or any number of different left-wing content creators have no bearing on the actual policies that the Republican right are implementing. No, they don't. They don't.
Why did Kamala
You're
Harris
out of your mind.
Why did Kamala Harris in 2019 say on tape that transgender detainees should get surgery if they're undocumented immigrants? She said it because there was hold on, Haas, let me finish. Because there was enormous pressure. There was enormous pressure from the radical left to say, oh yeah, you got to be pro transgender detainee immigrant surgery. You have to, otherwise you're not left enough. And she's an idiot. She doesn't have any thoughts in her head. She was like, okay, I'll adopt that position. And it was because of the extreme left that she adopted that position. She's an empty vessel.
You are literally attributing the consistent thing that you also agree that Kamala Harris is a bad politician with bad instincts and did not have a good way to communicate what she would have done differently for trans people to Majority Report and any number of different like extreme leftist outlets that literally get a fraction of the views that I get in this regard. Like, no disrespect to them, but like all of us combined do not have the same motion. You're talking about the special interest
You never
groups.
fight them, so nobody knows. Everybody thinks you're extreme left. Everybody thinks that you're the woke left extraordinaire. Right, so like,
he is.
And why do they think that? Apparently, you don't agree. But
yes, they do,
because you don't actually ever fight on this issue. You don't delineate.
The reality is the way that people are presented by others ends up changing the perception that they have in the minds of a lot of people that are they're simply just not paying attention. I come at it from a much more understanding point of view, and I understand that there is a large tent of people with a diversity of different opinions. And there are moments where I will yell at a chatter, but outside of that, in terms of the finite amount of time we have spending, I find it more productive to spend it focusing on the actual people who hold the levers of power rather than people who I'm aligned with almost entirely, whether it be yourself with some very major disagreements or even Sam Cedar and the like.
But
that's
Haas, you're making it sound like
presenting
we
yourself,
just have a difference of agreement.
No, presenting yourself.
No,
as
but we don't have.
Okay, wait. I've got to pause this shouting match and ask Donna: is it true that Kiwi Farms crashed because of that Destiny dump? Because of the video that was leaked on Kiwi Farms? Is that true, or is that just a naughty rumor that's been making the rounds? Yeah, I just need to know that. It is? It's true? So Destiny's moment of shame caused Kiwi Farms to go down. No pun intended. I am praying that the rumor that it was Destiny and Nick Fuentes is true. I am praying it's true. I really am. I am so delighted with this turn of events. Hang on. Although, oh, what happened, Casso, is that from my understanding, what happened was that Destiny has this tendency to massively overshare with his viewers. And one of the girls who was in Destiny's Discord, her account was compromised, and a whole bunch of incredibly cringy and embarrassing material from their DMs and the Discord ended up going public and ended up on the farms. And if you really must see what I'm talking about, it's all over Twitter. I skip over it because I really don't want to see it. But there is a very graphic video of Destiny pleasuring a man whose face you don't see. You don't know his identity. And some sleuths put together a timeline that showed that this video was filmed at a time when Nick Fuentes was visiting Destiny. Destiny, you know, I was telling Negs earlier, God damn, Destiny with his oversharing about his sex life and the details, you know, that he shares with his people in Discord, and the fact that he really needs some saltpeter. That would be Destiny, not Negs. I guess it was filmed by the person who was being serviced. I have no idea, but there was a posting on Twitter from, I guess, the official Kiwi Farms Twitter account saying that that video caused the entire site to crash. It's been down for 2 days. So anyway, so now we have verification that, yes, Destiny crashed Kiwi Farms.
Haas.
Presenting yourself as the opposite of these people serves no purpose. It just only makes you look like you're the moderate voice in here and they're the extreme voices and whatever.
That's true, though.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just make your argument and move on and focus on the things that do matter.
Say the same thing to them because they're the ones that's because look, intent matters, Haas. Intent matters. Look, you know how many people disagree with me in Young Turks hosts? So I had this giant same exact debate we were having about the trans ad with Jordan Yule and with Jules Sulzdev. I can't. This is the one time I get it wrong, Jules. I love those guys.
How right you are.
I disagree with them all the time. We have the debates on air. There's nothing wrong with those debates. That's wonderful. No problem at all. Where I draw the line is bad intent.
Yeah, when I have disagreements with any number of different people on any other networks, I say ultimately I don't care. We are aligned in this fight. We care about protecting undocumented immigrants. We care about protecting trans people, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to this because ultimately, I don't give a shit if there are.
I have never heard him say those words. I have seen Hasan go completely ballistic on TV. I have seen Hasan get into it if he's in a mixed audience where people disagree with him. I have never heard Hasan be that gracious when people go up against him. He just blocks everybody and starts yelling like a lunatic.
Our disagreements. I have disagreements with my friends all the time. Ultimately, if I think someone is almost entirely aligned with me on a lot of these key issues, then I see no reason.
And they call you a Nazi and a grifter. You say, okay,
it doesn't matter. People call me. Yes. Okay, people
no
call
problem.
me all of it.
Okay,
I think it's ridiculous that if it's coming from the right, if it's coming from the right, then you can use that as an opportunity to show why they're ridiculous.
No, but let's get back to politics. So why does anybody think we're extreme, right? Why does anybody think the left is extreme? Because they have a whole bunch of hosts that they could point to and thought leaders and people online.
Yeah, myself included.
Right, that they point to and they go, look at these extreme positions that they have. So that taints the rest of the left. And that is counterproductive, it's unfair, and it's inaccurate. So stop pretending the most extreme positions are the most left-wing positions. They are not. They're the least representative of the left.
I think hyper-focusing on what the right is considering to be the most extreme positions is only giving it more air for no reason. The
independence decided elections.
That's right.
You're losing that battle.
This is why I said this is a sister soldier moment where you're like, identifying someone to your left that is more extreme than you to show everybody how moderate you are.
That is the worst comparison. I cannot believe that he brought up Sister Soldier. That is a 30-plus-year-old reference. If you don't remember, this was an incident, a non-incident that blew up during Clinton's first campaign in 91. It was a rapper named Sister Soldier, and Clinton had to denounce her. It was stupid. That was over 30 years ago, Hasan. And these issues are not Sister Soldier moments. Absolutely not. They are actually issues of tremendous concern to the people who vote in elections. Like I said before, I thought the goal was to win elections, not to demonize people who disagree with you or gaslight them into backing off because you tell them that their concerns are invalid or they're imagining it. No.
And there's no reason to do
show
that.
them how moderate Democratic voters are.
There's no reason.
Because they brainwash people into thinking that Democratic voters are lunatics who, by the way, okay, let's argue this. That no crime exists.
There's no reason to do
crime
that.
is great.
There's no reason to do that.
Crime is wonderful.
You want to know why there's no reason to do that? Donald Trump is president. You never see Republicans do that, even if they do actually disagree. Even if they do actually disagree, it doesn't matter. There's no reason. There's no reason to ever turn around and be like, I disagree with these people.
You're 100% wrong on this. So let's look at California. So you say it doesn't matter.
I gotta pee real
electorally.
quick. You can keep going. We'll talk about crime in a second. Go ahead.
Okay.
I gotta pee.
All right. So look, guys. I mean, I want to respond to him, so I want to wait till he gets back. But look. I'll say it this way. Number one, the thing Haas is right about is there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. You know who has good intent and who has. The thing Haas is right about is there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. And that is why I get mad when people pretend that the disagreements are the only things that matter. So I'm not the one pretending that. The people that attacked us said, how dare you disagree? How dare you? That is not a sanctioned disagreement, okay? So now you have to fall back in line and you have to start calling, women this and that, and you have to say that trans people should be getting the free surgeries and be able to play in professional sports. And if you don't, you're not really on the left. And in fact, Cenk, I get this argument all the time. You have the biggest left-wing network, so you have a responsibility to agree with us. But what the fuck does that mean? I don't have a responsibility to agree with you. No, I have a responsibility to represent my audience. I have a responsibility to represent the left in an accurate way and to represent Democrats in an accurate way. I don't have a responsibility to take the most extreme positions because somebody decided that they, having not voted on it at all, representing the most tiny sliver of Democratic voters, says, no, that is the left-wing position. Well, when you say that, and you shut off debate, well, then you're doing a massive disservice to the left, not to the right.
Correct.
So look, at any time you go on Young Turks, you'll see disagreement all the time. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. There's something wrong with saying that if you don't have the most extreme position, that you're not really on the left and you're a right-wing grifter and blah, 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 blah. So let's do crime. Did crime have, you and I had a huge debate about it, and you thought it's not going to affect elections, and it obviously did affect elections, Haas. So, I mean, here in California, first of all, Donald Trump picked up 10 counties overall. He closed the gap between Kamala Harris and himself massively in California. George Gascon lost 60-40. The mayor of London Breed, mayor of San Francisco, lost overwhelmingly. Mayor of Oakland got recalled 65-35.
That's
Prop
right.
36 passed with a 70% approval.
Sure
The
did.
Democratic voters of California said, yes, crime is real. And yes,
I
we
can't
hate
wait
it
to hear
and
this
do not
response.
want more crime. We want less crime. Those are Democratic voters.
So can I ask you something? Do you think that Californians love involuntary servitude, also known as slavery,
Oh
in their
my
prison
God.
structure.
So no, you guys. That's exactly my point, Huss. So that's a.
they
there was a
voted for
no,
it.
no. Hold on. There's a prop that Hassan's talking about here in California that basically said we should get rid of slavery in the prisons, and it lost.
Mhm.
And that's terrible that it lost. And my thesis on why it lost, when of course the Democratic voters of California, if they understood what that meant, would say, "Oh no, I don't want slavery."
Oh,
in
so the
prisons. That's
voters are
crazy."
stupid.
Yeah.
But
okay.
they voted against almost every left-wing ballot measure,
That's
including
right.
minimum wage,
Mhm.
because they
Oh.
thought, oh, the left wing is the extreme wing. They're
That's
the
right.
pro-crime wing. They're the pro-super extreme positions. So even if I'm a California Democrat, I'm voting no on everything.
Okay, when even a minimum wage ballot initiative loses in California, you know you're onto something. And I cannot wait to hear this cope. This is going to be good. Now, the crime portion of this conversation goes on for an hour. I'm not going to be here the entire time. I put the link to this video in chat, and later on I'm going to put it in the description box so you can watch the whole thing. Like I said, it was over 3 hours long. It was a lot. So let's hear what Hasan has to say about this route when it came to progressive policies and when it came to progressive politicians in California.
The Democrat proposed it, no. And that's why we got slaughtered in this election.
So, okay. So number one, you and I both agree. Well, if I were to ask you, I think, do you think the people of Mississippi are more, are more progressive than the broader California electorate? You would probably say no.
No, yeah, culturally, no.
And having said that, in the state of Mississippi, when that same exact ballot initiative was clearly defined as slavery, it passed overwhelmingly. They voted against. They voted against slavery in the prison structure.
Do you see how that makes my point?
No, my point is that the way you frame things certainly matter. It matters a lot because most people are not paying attention to anything. That's why you had people searching if Joe Biden had dropped the day before the election.
I knew it.
That's why communication matters. That's why who you define as your enemies matter. But if we're going to talk about so perception is important. And narrative in many instances is more important than the truth, right? We agree with that, especially in this day and age.
So framing matters a tremendous amount. We agree.
Yeah, framing matters a tremendous amount, and also narrative is more important than the truth. I think this is something that you would agree with as well.
Then again, you get into short run, long run, but yeah, it's super important.
It is. I mean, this is a
narrative. This is super important.
This is almost a callback to the Alan Lichtman conversation, right? Like disinformation played a big role. It's not just disinformation. It's also information that's coming out of like legitimate sources with authority, like legitimate outlets of information that people still trust, like their local news stations. 90% of it is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. They're super right wing. Yada yada.
Is he honestly expecting people to believe that the recall vote in Oakland was led by Sinclair Broadcasting? He really expects people to believe this. That was a grassroots movement to rid Oakland of the mayor and the DA. Does he really believe that the residents of San Francisco allowed Sinclair to influence their vote when they voted out the mayor? Is he serious? I guess he is. All right. And this is why nobody should take you seriously, Hasan. Nobody. This is incredible cope. And it's incredibly, unbelievably dishonest.
But also newspapers, national newspapers, things that people care about. Fox News now dominates the media consumption by 73% last time I checked. It's an insane number, right?
Yeah, right. Those great consumers of Fox News in San Francisco. Okay.
So in that process, something that fell apart for the Democrats and their unwillingness to actually fight back and counter message on anything because they're cowardly was the issue of crime.
Okay.
There's been a lot of
Let's hear it.
analysis on why crime rates have gone down historically, and they have completely rebounded and are trending downwards once again as
Here
they
we
have
go.
since the 90s, which I know you're going to get mad at, but hold on. And that most surveys conducted on the matter show that Americans think that their neighborhoods and the crime has not increased in their neighborhoods, but actually crime has increased elsewhere. So why do they think that they're safe in their neighborhoods, but they still feel like crime is exploding in the country? I think it is because of the right-wing misinformation faucet
Oh my
that
God.
is completely dominating independent media and completely dominating even major newspapers, and that everyone is constantly in a holding pattern on whatever Republicans decide is the major point that they want to argue for. And because the Democratic Party basically operates as controlled opposition against them, they just sit there, they wait for the next talking points to come out so they can do a terrible job trying to address any of the truths of the matter, and they just get dominated over and over again. There's a second part of this, though.
Okay,
It's what
let's
you
hear
see.
it.
Not only has the crime rate actually gone down, and I think you recognize that as well, the National Crime Victimization Survey does not show like a major blip in unreported crimes. There is definitely more unreported crimes than before, and we can address why that's happening as well. But overall, the real reason why I think a lot of people see crime everywhere, and especially in cities, in my opinion, even though Republican and red states have significantly higher rates of crime than states like California do, the reason why most
Yeah, but the red states have not decriminalized crime the way Oakland and San Francisco did. You see, this is what happens, Hasan. It's very simple. When you pass laws that allow people to shoplift up to a certain amount and get away with it, when you reduce the number of police on the streets, which is a deeply unpopular position to especially older residents in dangerous neighborhoods, crime increases, car theft increases, robberies increase, purse snatching and everything else. And people get angry and they say, no mas, we've had enough of this. But you really want to cite some study to convince the people who have been victims of crime or the business owners who are losing money hand over fist due to theft that they're just imagining all this. That'll work. That's going to work super, super well.
people fall into this trap of assuming that California is a crime-ridden shithole as opposed to like a place like Alabama or a place like South Carolina, despite the fact that they have higher rates of crime and including violent crime than California does, is because narrative is more important than the actual truth. Also, the reason why Californians themselves genuinely believe that this is also happening and no one is addressing it
because it's actually happening.
Right.
No, it's because of
it's
what
not
they
happening.
perceive to be what they perceive to be is disorder and dysfunction and crime that is
But they're
happening in
delusional.
every orifice of blue cities.
So
It's homeless, it's poverty, it's visible aspects of extreme poverty that in many instances can actually be a crime or will sometimes be criminalized. Homelessness, trash on the streets. You see someone doing drugs on the corner of the street.
Extreme left positions that are this.
Yep.
This is Gavin Newsom, the extreme leftist.
But he does agree with you guys.
No,
Yeah,
was
he
on
does.
your side on Prop
Gavin
36.
Newsom,
He was
Gavin
on your
Newsom,
side on Prop
the
36.
person who physically went and cleared a homeless
But
encampment is
only
on my
after he
side.
encouraged them for 3 to 4 years straight.
No,
because
these-
he thought you guys
No,
were
you
right.
and I are in agreement if we fucking hate Gavin Newsom, but maybe not on the same fucking basis. I hate Gavin Newsom because he refused time and time again, despite numerous ballot measures that wanted to fix one of the most significant, most consequential aspects of why homelessness persists in a state like California. He refused to do it because he's backed by the same corporate investors that say, do not fix the housing market. Do not touch the housing market at all. Housing costs must always go up. The number one reason why homelessness persists, the number one reason why homelessness exists is because people get priced out of the market. When people get priced out,
That is completely false. That is not true. That is a gross oversimplification of why homelessness exists. That is preposterous, Hassan. It's also drug addiction. It's also untreated mental illness. Housing costs, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But there are a lot of factors that go into it. But to say that it's only because of housing prices, that's simply not true. It's far more complex a problem than you're willing to acknowledge.
Out of the market, they start living in their cars. When you start living in your car, you no longer have access to running water. You can't clean yourself. You lose your job. Your job attainment goes away. When you lose your job, you fall further down that pit until you arrive at the homeless guy that has been traumatized by fucking living outside and looks like a crazy person, is probably fucking experiencing significant mental health complications and doing drugs to self-medicate in that process, and everyone sees that and goes, that's crime. Why is no one fixing this?
No.
And that is the major issue. It's
So,
not it's
I haven't gotten in here in like 20 minutes. So let me address crime.
Oh, first of all, you've definitely talked a lot more than me. I've given you all the space.
Okay, listen. So let me address crime, then we'll get to homelessness. So on crime, you have to separate out national numbers from local numbers.
That's
Why?
right.
Because Tennessee didn't do the same things as California and New York did. So you have to look at, okay, when they tried different things, how did it work out? So the national numbers are totally irrelevant. So when you get to California, I looked it up this morning because I knew we were going to have this discussion. So pre-pandemic to now, violent crime up 15%, homicide up 15%. By the way, crime is complicated. Not every number goes up and down in the way that you would expect, or goes up all at once or goes down all at once.
What year to
for
year are you comparing?
2019
Oh my
to
God.
now, okay. So yeah, so like because we did a lot of the reforms in 2020, okay. But
Yep.
it's also complicated because the pandemic actually drove crime as well. So there was a number of different factors that in. But did crime go up? You're saying no, it's just a narrative. It didn't really go up, but it did.
No.
So
crime,
violent crime went up 15%, homicide went up
Yes,
15%.
and it's
Hold
gone
on, let me
down.
finish. Well, no. This is overall last 4 years, okay? So yeah, it was spiked in 2020,
Yes.
2020 and 2021.
Yes.
Then it started to slowly come down, and last year it came down a little bit. But now, where is it? It's still 15% higher than when we started on violent and crime and homicide. And from where we started, it's now up 29% on retail theft, 43% on auto theft.
There you go.
52% on car accessory theft. Those are real. People feel that.
That's
Everybody's
right.
had their catalytic converters stolen. Everybody's dealt with minor crime that wasn't an issue before, but is an issue now. Those numbers are real. So when you say to them, "Oh no, it's just a narrative," and they're like, "God damn it, man!
You're right, Cenk.
My uncle got robbed, and I go to the CVS and I can't get a goddamn toothpaste." You're saying CVS? Imagine that bullshit, right? And so when you are telling them, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe the numbers.
That's right.
You should believe me. It's just a false narrative.
Yeah.
They don't believe you, and they were right. And so when you saw in the elections, it wasn't that the right wing tricked the people of California. And Haas, this is so important because in 2020, they tried a ballot measure that was very similar to Prop 36, okay, to repeal Prop 47, which is what reduced penalties, right? And it failed. It only got 38%. Why? Because the people had not yet felt the crime, okay? And after 2020, when the crime actually went up, they felt the crime, they experienced the crime, and they voted against the crime. None of that was narrative. It was real, and it had a massive effect on the elections in California.
As far as retail theft, is a conversation. We've had this conversation already. That retail theft is down, and not only is retail theft down, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but retail
which
theft,
time period?
Retail theft in terms of like organized retail theft, in terms of crime across the board, even in 2020, the actual theft crime is like not the violent crime and homicides. Homicides were the only thing that spiked, okay, which is pretty consequential. It's pretty significant. Even homicides have also gone down since the major blip that they experienced in like.
Okay, so if retail theft is down, then why have so many businesses closed in Santa Monica, in Oakland, in San Francisco? Why have so many big box retailers pulled out of those cities? Why are so many mom and pop businesses feeling the pinch? Why are storefronts shuttered in very, very expensive neighborhoods? You can't even keep a Whole Foods open in San Francisco. The supermarkets have pulled out. Why is that? Is this all manufactured consent? You're not sitting in Noam Chomsky's classroom at MIT, Hasan. This is real stuff. This is not academic mumbo jumbo. These are real people that are being affected by these problems. But you're going to sit there and you're going to try to gaslight them and say, let me point out some study that has no bearing on the lives of the people who are being victimized. But okay, go on.
It post 2020 and 2021. As far as like retail theft goes, many of the places that claimed that there was organized retail theft occurring openly recognized that they were, using that as a way to massage their numbers. The real shrink that increased was completely adjusted to the increased foot traffic. I mean,
So
this
you're
is not
showing
even
an article from 2020. I just gave you the numbers from the last 4
No,
years.
I know. I'm giving you. I'm showing you that like this is the article that I'm showing that says shootings and killings are up, even in that
From 2020
time frame.
Right. So I just gave you the definitive numbers in the last 4 years in California. So it did go up, and Haas, like
the reason we're having a conversation that not only is wrong, it's something that the people that actually the people themselves admitted to why it was wrong. That at the time I looked at the situation, I looked at the organized retail theft, I looked at the National Retailers Association numbers, and I adjusted shrink and the percentages that contribute to shrink, and found out that the overarching number of thefts that were occurring were not actually happening as a direct consequence of like organized retail theft, because no one is going to be able to steal billions of dollars worth of merchandise by
That's not what we're
organizing
talking
retail
about.
theft. It was actually happening, and you might like this, you might appreciate this, because of fucking automation. It was happening because normal Americans, when they go into a store and they do self-checkout, which is more beneficial for corporations because now you don't have to pay benefits for cashiers. Now you don't have to, pay a whole bunch of people to actually sit at the cash register. Now you don't have to do workers' comp. Now you don't have to do paid, family leave or anything like that, or no health care. Now you just have an automated machine that one person is controlling every now and then. In that process, they realized that shrink would actually go up, because people would just go in and maybe put a Snickers bar in there and toss it in their bag.
This is the most delusional cope I have heard so far. No, it's because California had a law that you would basically not get arrested if you stole under $900 worth of merchandise. So why even report it? The police wouldn't do anything about it. They weren't arresting people. There was tremendous incentive for people to shoplift. And they did. We've seen on my channel, I've shown you clips of news crews going into a CVS or a Walgreens or whatever, and people are just walking out with bags of merchandise. And the news reporter asked the cashier, did they pay for that? And the cashier says, no. You mean to tell me that you think that self-checkout is the reason that retailers lost so much money? Pilfering. You must be, Hasan, you are the most deeply unserious person when it comes to politics of any kind in any country that I can imagine. This is incredible.
Is why shrink went up.
No,
okay,
Haas,
that is the real reason why shrink went up, or on the theft side. Okay,
two things can be true at the same time. So that point about shrinkage and automation is absolutely right. And the right wing totally ignores that. You are right to bring it up, but that doesn't mean that the actual theft at the retail level didn't happen. Number one, the numbers indicate that it happened. Number
That's right.
two, the idea that CVS, Walgreens, all these guys were just decided to pretend that the people were going to steal this stuff and start locking it up when they weren't actually stealing it is crazy. They were actually stealing it.
No, people,
that's why they locked it up.
I know.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, but
okay. So
but
both
you
of those
can't
things
make
are true.
up for billions of dollars in lost revenue.
But when
from
people go to a CVS and that shit's locked up, they get super mad.
I know, and it goes back to literally the same exact thing that we were talking about with respect to seeing homeless people and being like, this is crime. Crime is everywhere, and instilling a sense of panic.
Crime is everywhere.
Crime is everywhere.
And look, so now
Look
let's
at
go
him.
homeless
So,
people.
but you're talking about organized retail theft when this conversation has already, like, we've closed the book on that. That like
We still no.
CEOs
No, 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 no.
Before we go to homeless people, but look, let's
Openly
talk
have
about the
said-
substance. Let's talk about the substance.
They've openly said that they lied about it. Like
No.
Yes,
No.
this article is literally that.
Haas,
Maybe-
Look, you're cherry picking.
I'm
and
not.
And you're getting to a point that they admitted something that they did wrong that I agree with you on. But I'm telling you that two things can be true at the same time. What you're pointing out is definitely right. And they've also admitted many other things. They also admitted that they drove up pricing during inflation because they were price gouging and they were taking profits. They bragged it about in their shareholder meetings. That is absolutely right. But the crime is also correct.
No,
when you go to the substance of the actual laws, I voted yes on Prop 36. Did you vote no on Prop 36?
Prop 36 was the increasing the penalties. Yeah, I voted no on it. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a disagreement.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
So what were the penalties? They said for theft under $950, if you've done it 3 times, then we're going to move it to a felony instead of a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
$950. I stand
Okay,
corrected.
yeah. Well, that's because.
Do you want to know why I disagree? Do you care?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
So a couple things. This also goes back to narrative overcomes truth, and narrative is more important than truth. If I were to tell you that the state of Texas has less stringent rules on what constitutes a felony theft than the state of California, which has implemented the $900 policy since like 2014.
Oh, 900. I was right. Sorry.
Introduction into California state law. Would you be surprised to find that out?
But those two things are crossed together, Huss, because when everybody talks about how California changed the laws and now you can go steal things that are under $950 all day long and it's a misdemeanor, and since it's a misdemeanor, they're going to plead you down to nothing. You publicize that, then everybody goes, shit, let's go steal some stuff because apparently it's totally fine now, and more people go and steal. So that is where the reality meets the narrative.
So you're saying that the media coverage over this has led to an increase of people going out and stealing stuff.
Both things are true. That the laws were changed, it did make it easier to steal, and then the media covered it, and then more people stole because the media covered it, and they're like, oh, it turns out you can just steal and get away with it.
So you and I agree that, like, I'm not saying that no theft has occurred. Of course, it did. We've all seen the videos, right? You and I, on the other hand, do agree that the larger, more consequential increase in shrink came from automation and not like organized retail theft. I think you would agree to that.
Yeah,
because it's impossible.
On the scale of the numbers, I hear you.
I mean, it's
I haven't looked at it myself, but that sounds right.
It is mathematically impossible for organized retail theft to contribute billions of dollars in lost revenue, because it would have to literally be like pandemonium, because the things that you're stealing, the things that you're stealing are not expensive enough. Like, they're not stealing gold bars, they're stealing deodorant and shit, right? So like, over time, the real ways in which this happens is if this is a mass pattern change and a mass attitude change that makes it easier to fucking steal small things here and there. Those numbers add up in a significantly larger way to the overall shrink of the companies. They know that. They already baked that into their profit margins because it's still cheaper for them to lay off a shit ton of their employees and allow some people to fucking steal.
Okay, then why are they closing their stores? And I'm sure that they have factored in losses due to people cheating the self-checkout. I have no doubt about that. Then why are the stores closing? Why would you do that? And the problem is that they're talking, you've noticed that they focused on big box stores. Profit margins at the smaller mom and pop shops that still exist are very, very small. They're razor thin. So these thefts have a huge impact on small business. A huge impact. And they don't have self-checkout at these small businesses. Self-checkout exists at the Targets, the Walmarts, the dollar stores, the Dollar General, places like that, but not if you're walking into, the local bodega or whatever and just running out with a ton of stuff. That hurts small business. And there's no incentive for a small business, if they can even afford the rent, to open up in a place like, Santa Monica or San Francisco. This is all very hypothetical, obviously, because the rents are out of control. Even in Santa Monica, where you've got like an entire esplanade where there are tons of shuttered stores, the landlords are not reducing the rents. And so they stay empty, and you end up with urban blight in Santa Monica. So I'm going to finish up a couple of more of their thoughts, and I'm going to be out and get on with my day. I've got some stuff to do, but let's go.
It contributes to the shrink. What they also did, and this is not just the, Walgreens wasn't the only one, or CVS wasn't the only one. There was a brick and mortar retail is incredibly expensive.
Yes.
They're getting dominated by Amazon that has now purchased Whole Foods and is doing Amazon Fresh, and they're getting dominated by grocery delivery services. They cannot compete and maintain brick and mortar retail stores. That's why I believe one of these major chains actually went bankrupt recently. I think it was CVS or Walgreens that literally had to close all of their stores.
Yes, but we agree on all that. And I'll add on top of that, private equity buys them, and
Yes.
then they reduce
But
their
that
costs.
has nothing to do with
And
shoplifting.
which then drives
so
a
if you
vicious
understand,
cycle.
Rite Aid was the one that
Yeah.
that
So
went bankrupt.
I understand all that, but
So-
you're not addressing the point. That can be true, while crime going up can also be true.
No, I'm afraid like you're laser focusing on something that invokes emotion when actually looking at the data shows that the much larger problem here, or the much like not even a real
It
problem
doesn't
for
matter
them,
which one is larger.
is
Retail
actually
theft
coming
went
from
up 29%. It did go up. It is real. So when you get that it's counterproductive when you keep saying things that make people think
Because-
that you think that they're making it up in their head and it's
Right.
not real
Because
at all.
I have looked at
Do
the
you
actual numbers.
But do you see that makes them that
Okay.
alienates them even more?
Okay.
You're saying even though it went up 29%, I want you to pretend that it didn't.
No.
And I want you to say it's not real. Well,
No,
That's
they're
right.
not going to say
You're-
it. They're-
no.
And the elections prove it.
Okay,
Yep.
let me give you a parallel here.
Oh,
The
God.
Democratic Party kept saying, right, that that the economic impact that Americans were facing was inconsequential, that the economy was good actually.
Yes.
Right? They kept repeating it over and over again, and people were like, what the fuck are you talking about? My
Yes.
anger towards the Democrats in that regard was that they basically, and I use as an example on the Pod Save America the episode that I hosted yesterday. And this is a famous tweet that I'm basically paraphrasing. If you saw a homeless person and chucked 2 pennies at them, and then they yelled at you and they were like, "F you, why are you giving me 2 pennies?" Technically, you did improve their, material wealth by 2 pennies. Why are they being angry? Why are they angry at me for genuinely improving their material wealth by 2 pennies? You can frame every number and every percentage in a way that suits your argument, but what you have to look at is the actual data, which I have done. That's why I bring
Here
up
we go.
The National Retailers Association numbers.
Oh my God.
When I'm having this conversation with you about shrink increasing overall. When you say retail theft went up 29%, what you're failing to account for, and by the way, retail shrink has gone down for the record year
That was
over
2
year.
years ago,
All
2022.
the numbers are better in the last year.
But the instance where it did go up, it actually went up because there was more foot traffic in comparison to the year prior. When there's more people going into the stores, there are more people who are able to steal stuff. And
Okay, that does it for me. All right, so you just admitted that was true. So lockdown ended, the stores opened, people went in and they stole, and they had every incentive to steal because the upper limit of what you could be charged with was so high that why wouldn't they? This is maddening. Again, you're going to show charts from the National Retail Association, and meanwhile, the little old lady who wants to go grocery shopping and has to take the bus to the Safeway finds out that there is no more Safeway because people steal so much that Safeway closed that location, and now she's got to go shop at a smaller store, the only thing that's convenient to her, and pay twice as much as what she would have paid at Safeway. It's maddening. And this is why you cannot let people like Hasan and Sam Cedar and people like that be in charge of a political party or have any influence whatsoever over the policies of a political party, because they are living in cloud cuckoo land. Cloud cuckoo land. I shared the video already, but I'm going to put it in the description box when I log off. You guys, this has been a lot of fun. I have really, really enjoyed this stream, and I'm glad that all of you were here with me to participate. Thank you all so much for being here. And I will see you guys the next time. Thanks, guys. And don't forget to subscribe on your way out if you're not subbed already, and drop me a like. Thanks, guys.